my pleasure to meet you. And I'm so excited because I cannot wait to hear about, and life happens. Okay. Cannot
Oh,
wait to
thank you.
hear
Yeah.
about that
Yeah. Yeah.
because I think it's so important. So now I don't know what you know about Grandma's 2.0, but it's my baby that I decided to do because people kept saying to me, well, you don't look like a grandma.
Yeah.
You don't act like a grandma. And so I said, so what does a grandma look like and act like? Because I
Right.
said, no, today's grandmas are different, right?
Hmm.
We're different than grandmas, like maybe my grandma or my mom's grandma or whatever. We're different. So so what do you think? And so I was, asking people, and then they kept saying, well, you don't look like a grandma. How old are you? And I said, yeah, I'm grandma age. Okay, I guarantee you that.
Yeah. Obviously.
Look like or look like or
Yeah.
act like because I don't
Yeah.
want to. I choose not to,
Right.
right? I choose to be vibrant and alive and all that. And that's what I want for those grandmas that want that same thing. And I want
Yeah.
them to be okay with it. So
Yeah.
that's really what Grandma's 2.0 is about. It's like redefining what this word grandma means because I think that in society we get a bad rap.
Oh,
Grandmas are
for sure.
they're babysitters, they're old, they're
Yeah.
decrepit, they
Yeah.
can't do things that they used to do. They're good for two things, money and babysitting.
Which I don't mind the babysitting part per
I love that
se.
part, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So
For
so
sure.
that's why I decided to do this. And so what I've been doing is just talking to different people that are grandma, and I have found some phenomenal women out there.
Yeah.
And so I am trying to dispel that myth that grandmas are somewhere in home sitting around in a moo
Yep.
we are not
But they
doing that.
can if they want to,
Right. And
right?
if that's what
They
you
can
choose
if
to
they
do in
want
your
to,
life,
but
go for it.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I get that. I actually, I will say, oh, I'm, my I'm his grandma, and they'll what, and
Right.
you don't look like a grandma, and I think, well, I feel like what, like internally, I'm definitely tired. In the difference between the energy level I had watching my own children, running
Yes.
around and playing with them when they were little. We had children very young, um, and so I mean, and very young, but so then my son, my oldest, when he had his first child, he wasn't very young like I was, but I still get that a lot. But doing the same exact games, I used to dance with my kids. We would have dance
Yes.
parties and all these
Mhm.
things. And when I have a dance party with my grandson, I'll say, "Okay, I'm gonna go sit down, just for a second. Grandma's got to rest." But I do. I feel, and it may be my own internal bias, but I feel like when people hear I'm a grandma, they dismiss my brain. That
Yes, yes, yes,
that
yes,
even
yes.
and I want to go, but I'm also doctor.
Yes, hello,
You know,
Dr.
I
Grandma. Right.
yeah, I'm and yes, I'm Dr. Grandma. And so I got my doctorate. Well, I'll rewind just a little bit. I was 18 when I had my oldest, my firstborn,
Okay.
and my
Okay.
husband was 18. Um, nope, he had just turned 19 when he had his, and we met when they
Ah.
were, my son was 3 and his daughter was 2.5. And so we met, we each had our one, and we were both young parents
Mm-hmm.
navigating that world and trying to go to school. And how do you show them how to have a good life and how do you provide and all of those struggles. So we got together, we got married at 22 and had our twins at 23. And
Wow.
then, yeah, so that gave us 4 kids at 23, and then had another surprise delivery 5 years after the twins were born. So
Wow.
we have 5 kiddos,
Mm-hmm.
and now we have 2 grandbabies. But I received my doctorate while I was actually being treated for breast cancer.
Mm.
And it was the grandbaby thing was the most amazing blessing of that year. But in 2017, I was still working on my doctorate, dealing with everything with the breast cancer situation. And shortly after my mastectomies, they said, we're having a baby and here's the due date. And I went, oh, well, I got to finish my doctorate because I want to be done. I want to be done. And so I actually graduated. I finished right after he was born, but I didn't graduate until a little bit later. I had to defend, and I defended in February of 2018, and he was born in 2017. So it was all happening at the same time.
Wow.
So I became grandma and then my doctorate, but my brain was still my brain, right? I mean, I just earned this.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like the world saw me as just grandma.
Right. Right.
Now she's got to be in, like you said, her moo.
Right.
I even started to dress more like a grandma.
Mm.
The comfier clothes, and I'll say this dress is very comfy. And maybe seen as a moo to some people because it's very big if I sit up and show you. But I had just recently said, you know what? I'm not the person I am turning into. I want to be seen as a vibrant,
Yeah.
but I started 2 companies recently, right? I mean, with my partner on And Life Happen. So we're doing all of these things. We're still amazing young women.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be seen that way instead of the grandma way. So I even started switching my clothes back to feeling more attractive again and not the grandma name, right?
Mm-hmm.
That, that it just has this stigma. So,
Right.
yeah.
Now, what does your grandchildren call you? Because that's another thing that I noticed. So what do they call you? What is it?
They do we have 2, and the 6-year-old, he just calls me grandma. He calls me Grandma Cheeto.
Okay.
Or just grandma.
Right.
But our nickname is Cheeto. Like everybody calls us some form of variation of Cheeto. Even when I was a teacher and then a principal, I was called Mrs. Cheeto. Not on purpose. Kids just kind of dropped the E. And then parents really thought, because their kids called me Mrs. Cheeto, that my name was Mrs. Cheeto. And so they like everybody just called me Mrs. Cheeto. And then of course you go by your last name in education, that. So the staff called me Cheeto. Cheeto. So I'm Grandma Cheeto. Yeah. But and then we tried other names.
I was going to say, did you try other names?
He would not have it.
Right.
Just grandma, your Grandma Cheeto. And and he calls his other grandma Mima. And I love that. Mima is so adorable. And then I call my grandma Nanny.
Okay.
So, everybody
is different. Yeah. And today's grandmas. So when I had my first grandchild, not had, but
right. When they were born.
and he was born, I said, well, I'm too young to be a grandma. So even I had that same stigma. Right. And then I said, well, he's going to have to call me Grand Diva because I will not be called grandma.
Love it. I love it. Does he call you that, or do they all call you that? No.
He calls me grandma, and he called me that from day one. When he could, say the words. He calls his other grandma Nanny. Right. And so it was so funny because I kept trying to say Grand Diva. Look, Grand Diva. I tried to make it.
I did that. Yes. I did the same thing. I was doing it with grandma as well, just trying to get to say anything to recognize who I was. Right. And I realized recently, he called me mama, and I would always correct him. And I kept for the longest time, and I would correct him. And I realized just recently, I think that he was actually trying very hard to say grandma. And I'm over here, going, no, not mama, grandma. I think he was really, like mama, kind of a thing he was trying to do, but I didn't pick up on it. And so it wasn't until later when he could really enunciate better that we could clearly see that he was saying grandma. But I watched him 4 days a week back then. I worked from home. And from when he was, I worked for a university for almost, it was 10 and a half years. And so I was working from home. It was all through COVID and all of that. And I had him 4 days a week here from when he was, I think, 8 weeks old or 12 weeks old. And so we didn't think anything of him saying mama to everyone. But then I realized he was really probably trying to say grandma. But my grandmother had to be called grandmother.
Grand. I love it.
Grandmother. And it was very proper, right? I mean, she used to make me walk around with the book on my head and try to sit up and everything. And I don't. But my son, when he was born, he was the first great grandchild for her. And he called her old mama.
Oh,
And yes, can you imagine?
I
And
can't.
she accepted it. She
Oh,
was like,
really?
"Oh, you could call me old mama all you want, all you
Oh,
want." And she loved it. And nobody else, everybody, grandmother, and
right.
he got to call her old mama. And I went, "Oh, what?"
That's like
But
in the African American culture, we say big mama, right?
yeah, yeah,
And instead of saying oh mama, we say big mama. So big
uh-huh.
mama is huge. They have all the power. They are the status.
Yes,
They hold the
they
status.
are the head of the household of the
Yes, yes, yes,
entirety. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's funny how, things change or not change, but are different because of culture, tradition, the way families are raised and reared. But, it's also, I think, good because that means we have our own style and way of doing things that may
yeah.
be a little different because I think it's important to hold on to those things. But now I'm not a great grandma. And if when I become one, I do not want to be called old grandma. I may not even like big mama
Big
because
mama, yeah.
right,
Right, right. You could call me curvy grandma.
right. Yeah, there you go,
Don't
Kirby
you call me don't you call me old. So
and just call me Lisa. Right.
my mother, she recently passed, but she was called by not my children because they were born first, and um it's my grandmother was still around. So that regalness of the grandmother name was still embedded in us. But
Hmm.
then my siblings kiddos came around and they were born after the passing of my grandmother. And I never really put this connection together until we were talking just now. But they called my mother Squishy.
Squishy.
Yep. And she was not overweight. She was uh, rail thin. I mean, like, she was a tennis player,
Huh.
trim her whole life. Um, and they called her Squishy her
Yeah,
skin,
why?
because her skin. And she loved it. She's like, yeah, call me Squishy. And it was a whole other generation because it was the younger ones in the
Right.
family
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
that called her Squishy. And she played tennis a lot, so eventually her skin was really squishy. But she was very skinny, but her skin, yeah. And one of them, how kids do, and they say
Yes.
whatever pops into their head.
Yes.
One
Yes.
of
Yes.
them
That's the beauty of
squishy,
being a kid. Yep.
and
You can do that.
yep,
Yes.
and it stuck. And they still, when they talk about remembering my mother, they
Hmm.
say Squishy. and
Oh
she
wow.
and I'm going, don't you call me Squishy, don't you
Right.
call me. Don't do it, don't do it. So,
Hmm. Hmm. So tell me, how did you come up with this and life happened? How did
oh,
that come about?
so um, as I mentioned, I was going in 2017. I was being treated for breast cancer, and in 2018, um, my partner on And Life Happened had something very traumatic happen in her family, and that's her story, so I won't tell it here.
Hmm.
But she does share her story openly, but I always feel a little weird sharing it. So she had something very impactful happen, and people were constantly telling us, we were very close friends at work. We worked at the university together, and people were always telling us, you handled that so well. You handled breast cancer so gracefully, and it was almost same with her situation. It was kind of like, ew, what does that mean to be? Are we supposed to handle trauma gracefully? Are we supposed to? Do we have to? And people kept saying, you're so resilient, you're so resilient, you're so resilient. And so we found ourselves saying, nah, what do you mean? I feel like the world stopped for an entire year. I
Hmm.
didn't see the outside world other than
Hmm.
working from home, but like I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything. Had surgeries all year long in 2017, right? And doctor's appointments. And I totaled it up at one point and I had 106 visits in 2017.
Mm.
So it was crazy. So I didn't feel like I handled it well. I felt like I was, on a roller coaster screaming in silence and And so we started talking, and she said, and life happened. And we found that we were saying that to each other. Well, I can't do it today because, life happened. And
Right.
so in our conversations about trauma and healing and resilience and well-being and self-care, we said we should show other people we don't feel resilient, but people are telling us we're resilient all the time. We should show them they're resilient too, because
Mm.
you really are. You just don't see it until
Mhm.
after you're through the situation. And so that's why we started And Life Happened, so that people could um, see how resilient they don't know they already are, and to share resiliency stories on our podcast,
Yes.
because our stories can be the handbook that somebody else needs. So
Yeah.
she has shared her story. I shared my breast cancer story. We keep talking about someday doing my mom at 18 story, because as
Yes.
a mom at 18, that was a lot. It was
That,
traumatizing.
yes, that's
Yeah.
huge. And
Yeah.
and there are a lot of people over the years that have experienced that, and some have come out, on the other side of
Yep.
it, well, having done well. Some have not, you
Yep.
know, but
Yeah.
yeah, some may need to hear that. Yeah, one
Yeah.
of
Because you're not
relatives.
alone. Yeah. And then
Mhm.
we started And Life Happened on Instagram, and then our podcast, and then slowly, it has taken years. um we started a non-for-profit, and
Mm.
it is called ALH Coaching. So
Mhm.
And Life Happened Coaching, but we shortened it ALH Coaching. And we just recently, in August, finally became tax exempt as
Mhm.
a charitable organization through the IRS. And so we're building this company. And what we want to do is we want to provide life coaching for things like being a teen mom,
Mm.
going through cancer, and then
Mm.
tying in our leadership, because we were leaders in higher education.
Okay.
um, how can we help people interview better? How can we help them with their resume? Anything that they might need with our
Yes.
years of experience.
Mhm.
But we want to serve the underserved population, people like, and we want it to be free or reduced cost. So everything that
Hey.
we're doing, we're trying to make it, our end goal is free life
Oh,
coaching for
nice.
people who need it.
Yes. And there's,
And
there's there's such a
yeah,
huge need
yeah,
out there for, I mean, no matter what, like you said, for people who are who's seeking employment,
yeah.
people who may be teen parents. My parents were teenage parents. My mom was 16 and my dad was 19. And I was talking with a friend this morning about that and how they were on me. They were determined that I was not going to be, so they
We
were
did
so
that.
tough on me. They were so
Yeah,
tough on me. But
yeah,
and as I was going through that, of course, I had a little resentment about it. But
yeah,
because wow, I can't do anything my friends are doing.
yeah.
And then I just went to my class reunion. I'm not saying the number out loud. And so I reflected on where I'm at and where some of my friends are now. And I told
Mhm.
my mom, I said, I'm thankful that you were a little tough on me. I said, when I was going through, I didn't like it at all.
Right.
I said, but now I'm thankful because it kept me on the straight and narrow, and your determination for me kept
Yeah.
me in line with the things that I needed to do. So I thank God for allowing my parents to be my parents, you
Right.
know, so that I could be who I am. And if it were not for them, I would not be who I am. But even though, and then there were six of us, I'm the oldest, the rest of them, younger. And no, they were not as hard on them as they were me.
No.
They probably wore themselves out because
Right.
it was so hard for me.
Yeah.
And I get it. But yeah, it was really interesting. And so to hear, like you said, there are lots of people out there that whose story is I'm 18 or 16 and I'm
Yeah.
having a baby. What now? What
What
can I
now?
do? How
Yes,
do I navigate
exactly.
this? Oh my
Yes.
God. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's scary. Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
very scary. And with my partner, with what she went through, the group, she had she the year after my 2017, 2018, she had suffered a tragic loss in her family. And it was one that will rock you to your core.
Mm.
And she, I'll say it because she has talked about it on a podcast, but I won't get into her story, but she lost somebody to suicide. And so we want to help. That's not my area of expertise, but
Right.
That's the group of people that she would love to provide support for, because when you're going through it, you feel so alone, and who do you turn to, and how do you move forward? And she would like to talk to people about that. And so we aren't limiting ourselves to just those two groups, with
Right.
moms in general.
Right.
Parenting is hard. Parenting is so hard. Going to college. How do you
first generation college?
Yes,
First
that was me.
generation college.
That was me. Yeah. So there's so many things that we feel that we could help people with. But also think about when people are writing resumes or needing help writing resumes or needing help with interview skills, how expensive that coaching is. People pay $4,000, $10,000 for this career counseling, and CEOs looking for new job placement and all, and why am I not getting hired? I'm a former CEO. I don't know, let's do a mock interview together and see what's happening. But we want to do this for people on a scale where obviously we're not going to be meeting with CEOs because they can afford the $4,000 support, but people need help getting jobs, and they need help with the interviews and writing resumes and then all the other stuff in between. So we talk about, doing the superhero pose. We had one person that we were helping that I'm very close with. I've known her for 15 years. And we made her do the superhero pose for 5 minutes a day. And she was going, I don't know if I could do that. We would meet with her together. And I don't know if I can feel that way. And I'm going, no, you're a superhero. You go stand like a superhero. And I want you to stand like a superhero before every major meeting. Any meeting where you feel like you can't be a voice in that room, I want you to stand like a superhero in front of the mirror before you do it. And we made her send us a picture, and she put on a cape. She put on a cape and was like, look at me. And her whole face lit up. So there's so many things that we can help people with, but maybe the people that need it the most don't have the funding to the flexible money. Isn't when my husband and I were first married, our kids talk about it all the time. When we were first married, if we had hamburger helper, we were splurging. That was a big deal. Hamburger helper was a big deal because we had 4 kids at the time, and we were 23 years old, and so we didn't have discretionary funds to go pay somebody to help us write a resume or whatever the case may be, help us through single parenting or how to even open up a checking account or all of these things that people don't think about. So that's what we
a lot of people take for granted.
Yes. And we
even
we were looking at even helping, so that we based our company here in Arizona because it's a little bit, she's in California, and it's a little easier on the background of starting a company is actually a little easier here in Arizona than in California. So we did it here, but we were looking into helping recently released people from the jail that's actually very close to my house. It's like 6 miles or something like that, 8 miles. And women who are being released, what we're trying to do is even write grants so that when we coach somebody, we can get them a computer and internet access, and so that they can do the coaching online and have a computer to then go and whatever, the sky's the limit, go to school, do look for jobs, whatever the case is. So we're trying to do all encompassing so we can help the person in any way that they need and get them running. And so we were looking at recent parolees from the women's prison that's actually just down the way from me. But I was watching a newscast about how, and as you know, it's not a new topic, but when people leave prison, they are stuck with the stigma that is definitely different than the grandma stigma, but they have a stigma that they have been in jail and they can't be successful. They can't find housing. So we want to help them with, how do you find housing? How do you get set up for housing, and how do you get a job? And, when you have that, I've been in jail stigma.
That is so wonderful. I commend you guys on that. I just started doing some work with TANF and child welfare, right?
Yeah.
And they and I think there's a project in Arizona.
Oh,
You might want to connect with them because they can get you clients. Now, my project is not in Arizona. Mine is actually in Arkansas, the group I'm working with.
yeah.
Um,
I wrote
and
it
I'm
down.
just consulting from afar, right? And they are talking about, because child welfare handles the CPS reports,
Yeah.
TANF handles the benefits payment
Right.
part of that whole thing. But they're trying to work together and
Right.
support people just like what you're talking about. And there's so many resources
Yeah.
out there, but you guys are bringing in an additional resource, and
Yeah.
then maybe you can connect with some of those
Yeah.
organizations to help, get you people, maybe even funding, whatever. But yeah, I love what you're doing because people need that. And one of the groups that Grandma's 2.0 supports are those grandmas who are raising their grandkids.
Yes.
Kinship care, they call
Yeah.
it. And there's a lot of people out there that are doing that. And so I
Yeah.
commend you for that. And like you guys, I started a nonprofit because of that, just to support them as well in any way, that we can. It might be through
Yeah.
coaching, it might be through financial support, it might just be sharing information and resources with them, but it's about helping them because that is a population too that
Yep.
has been kind of lost in the shuffle and is invisible.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
So,
and there's a whole juxtaposition of I'm grandma and mom.
yes.
And so the child I'm raising now doesn't have grandma
Hmm.
because you have to, even though they may still call the caregiver grandma, they may not because it depends on um how that process unfolded. Did they raise them
That's
from birth and whatever? But then they don't have the grandparent anymore.
right.
And like you said, you pick up your grandchild and you do amazing things with them
Yes.
and then you give them back. So it's this other love layer that the children get to experience. And when children are being raised by their grandparents, even though there's the grandma hat and the mom hat coming on and off, they do lose that extra layer, that love layer. And then the grandparent loses that layer of companionship that they would have had. And
Yeah, it
it is
changes
a
the dynamic of the
yeah, for
relationship.
sure.
Because I would really hate to experience that with my grandchildren because of the way that we, like you say, engage with each other. And then
Yep.
to now have to be the parent because the
Yep.
parent role is a little bit more disciplinarian or
Yes.
something. It's
Yes.
not as fun. Like my granddaughter said, Grandma, you're the best girl. You're so much fun.
Yeah.
So that's what I
Yeah.
want to hear. I'd
Yeah.
hate for her to say, well, I don't like you anymore, act like my daughter
Yeah.
did was 13,
Oh, for sure. For
you know?
sure. Yeah. I mean, that's what I talk about all the time that at some point they're going to say to their parents, I'm going to go live with grandma. Like
Uh-huh.
they're going to be mad at
Right.
their parents. I don't like you because every
Right.
parent goes through the whole, well, I'm going to go live with fill in the blank, or I'm going to
Mhm.
leave, or I don't love you. I don't love you anymore. And
Mhm.
my husband's parents raised his sister's daughter um, from I think 2 or 3. I don't remember the age that they got her, but so they are still grandma and grandpa by
Mhm.
name,
Mhm.
but they have the whole dynamic shifted. She didn't get
Yeah.
to have grandma and grandpa, um, and then her mom passed when she was around 5 years old,
Mm.
and so she didn't have the mom layer. She had the grandparent layer, and it's hard on everybody involved,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so I'm glad that you're doing that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, because
amazing.
and some of them may need, because sometimes in these kinds of dynamics they may still be working, even though they
Right.
may be grandparent, they may still be working. So you've got that to engage, and then maybe even starting a business or whatever.
Yeah.
So just knowing what you guys are doing as a resource, I'd love to share that on my website, to kind of
Sure.
partner with you, get that out there
Yeah.
because I think it's something that people need, and I really appreciate you doing this for people because, yeah, it's definitely something that is missing, especially when, like you say, if you. So when people like me, I might say, "Oh yeah, I have a business coach," well, that business coach costs me. He or she
Right.
charges me, right? But
Yeah.
say if I don't have the money to say, oh yeah, my business coach said, and then and that helps me kind of elevate myself to the next level because I have a coach on the side here who's
Yeah.
helping me to get where I need to go. And they're not charging me an arm and a leg. They're charging me $5 for a session or something. You know
Yeah.
how powerful that is? Oh my
Yeah.
God. That is
Yeah.
very powerful. So thank you guys for doing that because that is something that's needed. And I remember when coaching wasn't so popular, it was just in athletics, right? But
Right.
now it is the thing.
Yeah.
Everybody has a coach. The coach has a
And
coach.
well, and this, so we talk about this a lot on our Samantha and I, my partner on
Mhm.
And Life Happen. We talk about well, therapy should be normalized. It should
Mhm.
be a regular part of medical, like every year, your annual exams, like, have you seen your therapist? Should be part of the questionnaire. It should be covered by insurance. It should be, a $30 copay, like you would go to
Mhm.
a doctor, and it should be covered. It should be normalized. So coaching is not therapy. It is
Mhm.
not therapy, but coaching gives people the opportunity sometimes to talk to people that they can't necessarily, especially our version of it, where we're not therapists. We are not in any way pretending to be therapists, but sometimes people just talk to us about stuff. And
Mhm.
here's the hang up of why I'm not getting through this interview question. Or here, we've had people, because how our coaching started was we were coaching people at the university together. And we were doing leadership coaching that we started together, and we would do mock interviews with them. And because in the university, everybody that works at the university, all the faculty members have higher degrees. So
Mhm.
the competition to move into leadership was really, really tough.
Mhm.
Everybody at our organization had to have a master's degree or higher. And so moving into another role is very competitive,
Yes.
thousands of people trying for the same job. So we were doing interview coaching, and we would discover whether or not it was the interviewing themselves itself, or maybe they didn't have the leadership repertoire that they needed to move into leadership. So we were coaching people through that. And it was amazing what we were hearing. We were here, we would, well, at this question, this is why I always break down. And I'm crying in my interviews. Okay, let's talk about that. And so we found resources for counseling as well,
Mm.
for actual therapy that is income driven. And
Mm.
we would, I mean, we're not therapists. So if it comes to something that's actually therapy related, we'd be like, here, call these people. But at the same time, we were hearing things that didn't necessarily need therapy, but also they had a block. They had a mental block, and they couldn't get through this interview question, or they couldn't get through, I can't even fill out the form to enroll in college because I don't feel like I'm worthy. Let's break that down. Let's unpack that. Let's back up a little bit. Now, again, I very clear we are not therapists. We both have doctorates, but we are not that kind of doctor. We're
Mhm.
very clear about it. But sometimes you just need somebody who will listen. And,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that's what we're there to do. And
Mhm.
somebody who, and we tell them, this is going to be so uncomfortable sometimes. It is uncomfortable, but we're going to give you pushback. If we feel what you're telling us is BS, we're going
Mm.
to say BS. We
Right.
and give you the pushback, right? And make you come to the realization, like what we see on the outside, and maybe you're hiding it or denying it, or trying to fool the world. We're going to give you that pushback. And so it's just an incredible experience. Our favorite thing that we do is coaching. That's our favorite thing that we do. Do we get to do it as much right now? Nope, because we're so busy with the
Mhm.
back end side of getting things going. But we're hoping that once we're building courses, and those courses can be done completely. They are completely asynchronous. They're completely on their own. But what we're doing is the courses are a very small fee, and they're donations. And then
Mm.
those donations are what are going to pay for us to coach people for free. So then
Ah.
once we get all those courses up and out, and then we can let that run, and then take that money and then coach people and see if we can get them computers, or get somebody who can write grants, because I am doing grant writing certification, but I'm so busy, I haven't finished the grant writing certification. So
Mhm.
somebody who can do that and get them computers, get them internet access, um, get them a cell phone, like
Mhm.
whatever we can do, we want to be able to provide this very wide range of support for
Right.
people. And so, you know,
Now, are you finding grants out there that are supporting So are you supporting women only, or you support, yeah. So have you found
Well,
kids out there that are supporting?
we we haven't really landed on the legal way to, we don't know what is legal and what is not when it comes to, can we say we're only supporting women? Because it's the very first time I talked to somebody about it. And it was somebody who did the expensive coaching that, like the interview resume, $4,000, $5,000 package. Like we were talking about that type of situation, like coaching in general. And he said, what do you mean you're only supporting women? And I was like, no, no, it's not only, I will work with a teenage dad. If there's a teenage father who needs support, and like I will happily work with them, but it is
Mhm.
usually the teenage mom who needs the support, or it's usually, whatever. And he said something to the effect of, I don't know if you can legally say you won't support men. I said, I've never said we won't support men.
Right. Because like
But
I say, we work with grandma. So
right.
am I legally,
I
not
don't
supposed
think so. I think,
to,
I mean, like, it's a
I'm not.
podcast, right? And it's like our podcast is And Life Happen. It doesn't say women can't. We've had men guests,
Mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm,
so we have been looking for grants. I have
mm-hmm.
not found one yet, but we have been looking for grants specifically for women. But that's because we are women. You know
Right,
what I mean? It's not because we won't support men. It's just we are women. I'm a grandma. I'm not a grandpa, right? Like I'm a woman.
exactly.
I would
Yep.
like to be with other grandmas, not
Mm-hmm,
necessarily other
mm-hmm.
grandpas, right? That's their own thing. They can go fishing. I don't want to. Like this is what I would like
Exactly.
to do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
I never heard that. But the reason I was asking that is because there are lots of grants out there, and sometimes they cater, of course, their announcements cater to, as you know, certain groups and,
yeah,
or certain what is it, approaches and things that you can do.
yeah,
But then there's some that are just kind of open-ended, and then
right.
you get to decide what you can do with that money. And
Yep.
that, to me, those are the beautiful ones, because it's not, you're not so boxed in,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
that's why I was asking. That's one of the things that I really want to have time to do, and I don't have time to do myself. So I get it, for the grandmas raising
Yeah.
their grandkids, finding a source that will support that particular issue, and so that I can then
Yeah.
really do something meaningful, to help and support grandmas who are raising their grandkids.
Yeah.
But that was the reason why I was asking, is because I'm looking for those kind of things myself. And like you, I'm very busy, and so I don't always have the time to write or even look. That's the thing. If I
I know.
look, I something,
Looking is the hardest
I'll
part.
make the time to write.
Right. Finding it is the hardest part.
Hmm.
And because when you start looking, you actually get a bunch of junk. It's not real. It's
Right,
grant search companies, and it's a lot of junk.
right.
Um, but if I find one, I will definitely let you know.
Yeah, and the same
You know,
here.
yeah,
If I run across something, I did subscribe to one of those grant subscription company, but I didn't get anything from it. I got one thing that was related to what I wanted to with grandparents, and then but when I tried to call them, I couldn't get. I'm like, what is that about? So maybe it was real, maybe it wasn't. I thought it was real, but then I tried to make some calls and all this, and nothing. I never got any feedback or whatever.
yeah,
But anyway, I just said, okay, I'm not going to worry about it. And so I did not renew my subscription. I think I evidently had it for a year, and I didn't renew it because I'm like, that's not really the one that I'm looking for. So maybe I need another, organization to work with
right.
who sends out those announcements and things like that. So,
Have you tried, and I have not tried this on my own yet. It's something that same thing. I have it in the back of my mind I need to do. So companies will send out requests for proposals.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so they have the grant money, or they have the money ready. And here, tell us how you want to spend it. But they'll have a specific umbrella. So I went to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is one example.
Okay.
And the reason I went to them is because my old organization, the university I worked for, they got a $2 million grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And so that was where I started. And none of the stuff that they have put out lately is pertaining to education, and they're really focusing a lot on sustainability and clean air and other things now with their foundation. But I get emails every time they post a request for proposals. I get emails from them. And so I need to sit down, make a list of all the organizations that, even if it's a crazy idea,
Mm-hmm.
Dick's Sporting Goods, why would they ever have anything to do with what I want to do? But maybe they have grant money that they need, that, they're
Right,
philanthropy.
right. Yeah,
So I
yeah.
need to sit down and go in and sign up for
Mm-hmm.
email notifications when they have their request
Yeah,
for
and
proposals.
that's the thing that I have not done. And that's a good idea. I did the subscription thing because I thought they would have all of those people and those
Yeah,
organizations in one, one thing, one repository or something.
right.
But I didn't really find anything that worked for
Yeah,
what I was trying to do. But that's a good idea. Just looking and maybe even looking for like cosmetic companies who cater to
yes,
women, right? And
yes,
what they, if they have a foundation or whatever, and going to
yep,
their website and all of that. And so I want to hire somebody to do that, who that's all they do,
right,
just look for those opportunities, and that's
right,
it. To And I think that might be the best way to do, because like I say, I just don't have time to do all of that, because I'm pretty much a one man band,
right,
except I have a virtual assistant who helps me with a lot of things, but I can't have her do everything, because
right,
I only have her for a certain number of hours that I can
right. It
afford.
gets
Right?
expensive. Right.
Bubble is real, as they
Yes.
say. Yeah.
Yes. But I love that idea though, the cosmetics company idea, because they do, I mean, who is it? Is it Dove that's doing the positive body image? I'm trying to picture.
Yes, I think
Is
it
it
is.
like,
Yes.
so, what a great, what a great place to start. And that's what I want to do one day, is just sit down with every out of the box idea that I can think of, every corporation that most large corporations have some type of philanthropy. They have some
Yes.
organization that they use to mitigate their tax liability, is what they're doing, right? So why not mitigate it in my direction? Give
Exactly.
me
Let,
some
let us
money
help
for
you
me.
mitigate your tax liability.
Yeah, you can mitigate it right on over into our charity.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah.
the other thing that I'm just thinking about as we're talking about this is organizations like yours and mine, and there's others out there, maybe getting together and talking about these kinds of
Yes.
things and supporting each other.
Yep.
So it's like women owned nonprofits or something. I don't know that I've seen anything out there like that. And I've seen women owned businesses, but I
Right.
don't know that I've seen women owned, or I don't know if you can say you own a nonprofit, but women who started a
Founded.
nonprofit. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to call ourselves founders, right? Like that's what
Yeah.
they, I mean, so technically I'm the president of the organization, but because banks won't let you say founder, it's the strangest
Hmm.
thing. So like I'm the president, she's a vice president and something else, because you can't both be president.
Right.
So she has two titles, I have one, to
Hmm.
balance it out. But we have to call ourselves founders because you don't
Hmm.
technically own a
Hmm.
nonprofit.
Right.
So,
Right.
but yeah, when I was thinking about coming on to your podcast, I was thinking, man, we should start a little coalition of
Yes.
all these people. I was actually thinking of just small podcast coalitions, like the
Yes.
startup podcasts, and then, but what you're talking about is even another avenue we could take to, it brings it, drives more people to see our small non-for-profits, our
Yes.
and I shouldn't even call And Life Happen a startup podcast. We've been doing it for almost 2 years now, but it's
That.
still a little baby. It's still
Right.
not this grand scheme of
Toddler
things
now. It's
podcast
two.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, that, but I was thinking that if we had like a little, um, uh, not even little, doesn't have to be little. That's a limiting belief right there. But,
Kind of a
coalitions,
network. Yes.
yeah,
Coalition.
network.
Yeah. I love that idea. Yeah. So yeah, that's something that we should talk about on offline, because I think that there's a lot of us out there. So I met a woman who does, what is hers? She does voices of Black grandmothers.
Interesting.
And she does that because her daughter, I think she said her daughter was a teenager, and she got pregnant, had a baby, and when she tried to get like TANF or something for her,
Uh-huh.
they would not let, she was telling me about it, and I thought, oh, what, that's very fascinating. either they wouldn't let her get it or they wouldn't let the child get it because she was living with the mom. It was some rule that you know, the government always has all these rules and they're built
Yeah.
into the structure of the organization. And because of that, she had to try to advocate for her child. And I think they said she couldn't live with her. She had to move out on her own. Well, this girl was like 17, 16, 17
Yeah.
or and not really mature enough to do that. And so she had to go and fight for her rights, for you know, to do this for
Yeah.
her own. It was a mess. But as a result of that, she started the organization. So you know, and so we had a conversation
Yeah.
as well. And so yeah, there's a lot going on out there. There's a lot of people that are doing phenomenal things. And she's a grandmother as well, that are grandmothers. And I'm like, I've been in awe
Yeah.
of what grandmas are doing. I've been in awe of what they're doing. It has
Yeah.
been fantastic. It's been fabulous. And I'm like really appreciating my grandmahood as a result of
Right.
it even more. You know, like I said, when I first came, I'm like, no, you can't call me grandma. No, 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 no.
Yeah.
But now I'm
Now go for it.
I'm like, yes, we are doing the doggone thing, as they say, because
Yeah.
we are really, we're not letting it stop us. You know, since I've been a grandma, as a grandma, I went back to school and got my doctorate. So I was
Same.
already a grandma when I did that. Yes, yes, yes. As a grandma, I've written 2 books, right? So, you know, and I'm on my third one now. So I'm like, oh my God, this is really fabulous. And if you would have said to me when I was a mom, you know, oh yeah, you're gonna be writing books, you're gonna be doing, I'm like, yeah, whatever. You know, I wouldn't have believed
Yeah.
it. But now that I'm a grandma, it's like my whole attitude has
Yeah.
changed.
And now that you're grandma age
Mm-hmm.
and other people around you are becoming grandmas too, and you're watching them still go out and do all of these things. I have a friend from high school who her granddaughter is really close in age to my grandson. And she went back and got her degree. And I was like, look at you go, girl. Like this is what they need to see, and people need to see
Yes.
that we're still our lives aren't over when we get the title
Right.
of grandma. It's
Yes.
it's just another phase. Like
Right. That's why
it's
I call it
another.
the 2.0.
Yeah.
It's like the advanced version of yourself. It
Yep.
really, and that's how I see it. Things that you may have wanted to do, maybe we're a little bit fearful to do when you were, you know, not a grandma. You're like, I'm a grandma and I can do whatever I want to do.
Right. Right. And maybe part of that is because they make us feel like we could do anything because they
Yes.
think we're so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Even
Mm-hmm.
though, my grandson is teaching me how to play things on the Xbox and do whatever. And, like, I've never played Minecraft before, child. I don't know what I'm doing. And, I'm sitting here playing Minecraft. But they also make us feel like we are superheroes. And,
Yes.
like we could, so my grandmother always told people this story of, she was a gardener. And so we would garden in the front yard. And one day I said to her, she said, oh, we got to go inside. The sun is going down. And I said, oh, grandmother, just hold the sun up. Just keep it up a little longer. And I don't remember that. I was very little, but she told the story until she passed
Oh well.
of her granddaughter, of which
Yes.
she had tons of grandchildren. But I asked her to hold the sun up because I literally thought my grandmother could keep the sun up. So
Right.
maybe the 2.0 grandma feeling that we have of, well, now I
Yes.
can really go out and do all these things is because
Yes.
they make us feel like we are the
Mm-hmm.
be all end all of things that can become, they
Mm-hmm.
just make us feel heroic. And
Yes. Yes.
so
Yes.
that's,
Yes.
I mean, I started 2 companies after becoming a grandma, not before, and finished my doctorate. I was stalled on my doctorate. I was completely stalled. And I was stuck in the data analytics phase
Mm-hmm.
of it. And just staring at the data for a year. And then they told me he was coming. And I went, oh, I got to finish. I got to be a grandma. I mean, I got to be a doctor. Like, I got to finish. I got to finish.
There's
And
a fire under you if your feet.
he
Girl,
totally
it's
lit a
a
fire under me.
fire.
Yeah, so I think they help us to feel like we are unstoppable, even
Yeah.
though chasing after him makes me tired.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, let me tell you this. I have a 2-year-old grandson. And that little boy, oh my God, that is the light of my life. I hope my other grandkids don't hear this, but that little thing has made me. So my oldest one is 21,
Okay.
my oldest grandchild, and my youngest one is 2. So one day we took a picture of the two of them together. It was so cute, and he was the little one was looking up to him. It's so
Yeah.
cute. But one day I went to their house and he said, "Grandma." Well, he calls me Mama. He said,
Yeah.
"Mama, basketball." And I said, "Okay." So he has a little basketball goal in his playroom. And he wanted me to play basketball with him. And so he was doing these moves, right? He's very agile. And I was like, does he want me to run by? He wanted me
Yes,
to
he
run
does.
by and block him. And so it was so funny. And so I was getting ready to shoot the ball. He blocked it. He said, "Get that mess out of here." And
Uh,
I absolutely fell in love with him all over again because it was just so beautiful to be able to play with him like that. And that's
yeah.
another thing that grandchildren do is they keep you moving.
Yes. There are studies about it. There are
Yes,
studies about how when grandparents spend time with their grandchildren, it actually keeps their mind and body agile
yes,
and
yes,
adds years to our lives when we can play with grandchildren. And I agree because just look at the steps that I take in a day that I have my granddaughter because I watch her one day a week. And
mm-hmm.
on that day, I get far more steps, and she's 7 months
Mm,
old. I get far more steps than when I just have my regular work day and I'm sitting at my computer
right.
working all day. I get triple
Yes,
the steps or more, quadruple the
yes,
steps. They keep us moving and fluid
yes,
and
yes.
on our toes.
Yes, it's a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I am so grateful, and like I said, the first time I was like, I'm not ready. But now I'm like, I am loving it. I have 7 grandkids, by the
No,
way.
I
And
can't wait.
every one of them, phenomenal little people. And I just enjoy, engaging with them no matter what. And there's how many teenagers now? Oh my God. So Cam, Layla, Isaiah, Jaden, like all of them are teenagers except 2. The 2-year-old, and then Tatiana is 11. She's 6th grade. No, yes, no, first year,
Uh,
yeah, so 6th grade. So
Sixth
she's
grade, that's the year where they become sixth grade.
right,
Sixth grade's the
right.
tough year. It is the
Yes,
tough
yes,
year.
yes.
Yeah.
And so, but those two are, just so interesting. And Tatiana was the grandbaby, the baby for so long. So our relationship is just like that, right?
Yeah.
And then it came Elijah. But I tell you, because of those kids, I have become the person that I am because of
Yes.
them. And
Yeah.
my granddaughter Layla, who's in college, and she said, Grandma, I sent her the second book, right? Because she helped me
Uh-huh.
with the interviews. And so I said, Grandma, I said, Layla, I put your name in the book because you helped me. And she said, Oh, Grandma, that's so nice of you. I said, now so you can tell the college that you are published now. Just like,
Yeah.
right.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my God. I said, yes. She said, Grandma, I just want you to know you're doing some phenomenal things. I'm so proud of you. And I said, I do it because of you guys.
Yeah.
I want you to know that you can do anything that you want to do in this world.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who you are, where you start, whatever, all of that does not matter. But it's what you want to do in your heart. And you just have to have the faith and the tenacity to keep going for it. You
Keep
have to
going.
persevere. And that's
Yep.
it. And I want you to know that. So I want to show you that things can be done.
Yep.
So, they are definitely the wind beneath my wings.
For
Yeah.
sure. I get it. Because my kids were, when I was an 18-year-old mom, I was like, I'm going to prove to the world that
Yes.
I am that because I was told many times, you ruined his life. You ruined his
Mm,
life. You have
mm.
by having a baby 18, you have just set him up for failure. And I wanted to
Yeah.
prove
Said,
everyone
who
wrong.
else would pay your husband? Is that what they
No,
mean?
my
Oh,
child.
your
They
child.
were
Okay. Okay.
saying I ruined his life. And
Mm.
his father is not in the picture. He hasn't
Okay.
ever really been around. He hasn't seen him since he was 5, and he's going to
Mm.
be 29 this year. So he hasn't been around in a very, very, very long time. But when he was little, everybody, and I mean, that in itself, that comparison where we were both told, his father and I were both told the same exact things together, shouted at us. You have screwed up this child. You have ruined his life. And I'm pregnant. And I went on to get a doctorate, and I wanted to prove everybody wrong. Like, no, he's going to be an amazing human. He's going to have a great life. You watch. And then the other person took the negativity and ran a different direction with the negativity, and his life has turned out very different. And so my children have always been my driving force, and now they're grown and don't necessarily, it's not that they don't need me, because they do, but it's a little different. So now my grandchildren are my driving force, and I want to continue to show them that they can do anything that they set their minds to. And hopefully I'm still inspiring my kids along the way as well, you know, but I want my grandson to see his grandma and say, I can go start a company. I can write a book. I can do a podcast. I can do, you know, whatever. And of course his can go in completely, I can write an album. I can, whatever he wants to do.
Whatever. Yes. And Jessica, I tell you, I've really enjoyed talking with you, getting to know you, and I hope that we will stay in touch.
For sure. Yeah.
I think there's some things that we need to do together. And I want to say, please tell people how they can get in touch with you, you know, social media, all of that, so that, you know, my audience will be able to reach out to you, because I do know, and I believe very strongly that there's a lot that you can help them with as well. So please share that with us.
So right now, our biggest point of contact is still on Instagram. Our website's going to go live in the next couple of days. We're still working on it, but on Instagram, it's @and_life happened. So @and the word and _life happened, one word. And we're on Instagram. We are also on Facebook and Threads, and we're working on our website now. But
well, please let us know when your website is up, and we'll share it with people, with our audience, because again, we want them to know about what you're doing.
Thank you.
It's very important work, and I'm just excited to have the opportunity to meet you. And with the grant writing thing, please kind of, you know, if you think of something, and if I think of something, I see that it's for women or whatever, I will share it with you. And I would love for you to be a part of the next book.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Interview women who are grandmas, and I believe that telling our story, like you said earlier, helps somebody else.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the reasons we're put here on earth, is to share what we're going through, our testimony, so that somebody else can be blessed.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really love it. I like your personality, your spirit about things, and I was just so grateful for you to do this today for us.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful to actually meet you live.
Right. Sounds fabulous. And again, thank you, Jessica, so much. And
thank you.
I'm looking forward to being on your podcast, and looking forward to you being in our next book. So again, thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
All
right. Bye.